We've also seen devastation across the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. Our understanding is that at least 13 people have been killed in that large-scale Russian missile and drone strike on Kyiv.
A devastating escalation has shaken the Ukrainian capital. In the early hours of this morning, Russia unleashed a massive, coordinated aerial bombardment targeting Kyiv, marking one of the heaviest and deadliest strikes on the capital so far this year. Local authorities have confirmed that the death toll has reached at least 17 civilians, with dozens more severely injured, and emergency crews are still desperately pulling survivors from the rubble of collapsed residential structures. But this wasn't just another random act of attrition. This strike represents a deliberate, calculated shift in Moscow's wartime strategy. For months, Ukraine has been quietly turning the tide, using its own expanding long-range drone capabilities, launching highly effective precision strikes deep inside Russian territory. These operations have targeted critical Russian oil refineries, infrastructure nodes, and even defense installations near Moscow, triggering documented fuel shortages and disrupting vital military supply chains. What we witnessed over Kyiv was Vladimir Putin's brutal response. The Russian Ministry of Defense has openly claimed this massive raid was a direct retaliation. However, beneath the political rhetoric lies a deeply troubling tactical reality. Ukraine's elite air defense umbrella, which has successfully shielded the capital for years, is showing critical signs of strain under the weight of weapon shortages and relentless saturation tactics. To understand the scale of this attack, we have to look at the raw data provided by the Ukrainian Air Force. This was a classic saturation bombardment, designed specifically to overwhelm and deplete Western-supplied air defense systems like the American Patriot and Norwegian NASAMS batteries. According to official military data, Russia deployed a massive combined force consisting of 74 missiles and a staggering 496 strike drones. The inventory included a mix of low-cost Shahed-type loitering munitions, Gerba and Iktalma strike drones, and Parodia decoy drones. The primary objective of these cheap, mass-produced decoys is simple: force Ukraine's air defense teams to burn through their highly expensive, finite interceptor missiles. While Ukrainian air defense units successfully neutralized the vast majority of the low-sonic cruise missiles and slow-moving suicide drones, the true threat came from Russia's high-speed ballistic inventory. Reports indicate that at least 25 advanced ballistic missiles, likely a combination of Iskander-M and air-launched Kinjal hypersonic missiles, managed to pierce the capital's defense envelope. Unlike cruise missiles, which fly low and can be shot down by mobile anti-aircraft teams or traditional surface-to-air systems, ballistic missiles travel on a high arc trajectory at hypersonic speeds, descending almost vertically onto their targets. Intercepting them requires maximum radar processing power and specialized top-tier systems. When 25 of these high-velocity weapons break through simultaneously, the structural devastation is catastrophic. In Kyiv's central districts, the impact completely sheared away the first 6 floors of a major apartment building and ignited multiple structural fires across 30 distinct locations in the city. The fact that so many ballistic missiles reached their targets highlights a critical logistical crisis that Ukrainian military leadership has been warning about for months: the depletion of interceptor stockpiles. Ukraine's foreign minister, Andriy Sybiha, immediately issued an urgent plea to Western allies, calling the bombardment a night of horror and begging international partners not to delay the delivery of additional air defense systems and ammunition. The strategic calculus here is brutal math.
A single Patriot interceptor missile can cost anywhere from $3 to $4 million. Russia is well aware of this economic asymmetry. By launching hundreds of cheap drones alongside a handful of sophisticated missiles, Moscow forces Ukraine into a position where they must choose which targets to defend and which to leave exposed. Furthermore, intelligence reports from the Institute for the Study of War indicate that Russia itself is facing competing demands for its own air defense networks. Recent satellite imagery revealed that Russia has been forced to pull Pantsir and S-400 air defense units from the front lines to protect the Moscow oil refinery and critical space communication centers from Ukraine's long-range drone campaign. This means both sides are currently locked in a fierce logistical race to see whose domestic production and international supply lines can outlast the other's appetite for bombardment. This latest escalation comes at a highly sensitive diplomatic juncture. For the past several months, the Ukrainian government has signaled a growing willingness to bring this grueling conflict to an end through structured diplomatic negotiations. President Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly stated that Ukraine wants to force Putin to the negotiating table, but only from a relative position of strength. To build that leverage, Ukraine has heavily intensified its operations in Crimea, the strategic Black Sea peninsula that Russia illegally annexed 12 years ago, back in 2014. By launching intermediate-range strikes against Russian command posts, supply lines, and the Kerch Strait Bridge, Ukraine is actively raising the economic and military cost of Russia's occupation. Just days ago, Crimean occupation authorities were forced to shut off commercial gasoline sales to non-state entities and suspend vital ferry operations due to fuel shortages caused by these precision strikes. However, the massive strikes on Kyiv send a chillingly clear message from the Kremlin. Vladimir Putin has no intention of negotiating on anyone's terms but his own. By striking the heart of the Ukrainian capital, Moscow is attempting to break the political will of the Ukrainian leadership and signal to the West that Russia is prepared to continue fighting a high-intensity war of attrition indefinitely, regardless of the damage inflicted on its own domestic energy sector. As the city of Kyiv prepares for an official day of mourning, the strategic landscape of this war remains incredibly volatile. Ukraine has proven that it possesses the technical capability to strike deep into the Russian heartland, successfully targeting infrastructure that keeps the Russian war machine funded and fueled. Yet, as long as Ukraine remains bottlenecked by delays in Western military aid, its major cities will remain vulnerable to these periodic massive saturation attacks. The defense of Kyiv is no longer just a tactical issue, it is a profound logistical challenge. Moving forward, the survival of Ukraine's infrastructure will heavily depend on whether its international allies can rapidly deliver the advanced air defense interceptors required to close the skies against Russia's ballistic inventory. Until then, the brutal cycle of long-range strikes and heavy retaliation is set to continue, with civilian populations on both sides bearing the ultimate cost.